It was a world war involving soldiers from around the world, from colonies or former colonies of the major European powers. However, most of the fighting, at least in the Western Front where Canada was involved, took place in a small area, between the Belgian towns of Ypres and Passchendaele in the north, to the French battle sites in the south at the Somme and Vimy Ridge. What was this war like? Most Canadians knew little of war, beyond the heroic stories they read in their school books. The government's propaganda posters used these mythic stories to encourage men to enlist in the army. The new Canadian Army may use motorcycles, but it is in the tradition of the medieval knights in the background. The next poster also uses mythic images and symbols. The brave Canadian with his sword bayonet slays the fire-breathing monster, a black eagle, the symbol of Germany. Most propaganda appealed to patriotism, duty to the country. In this poster, young lions, symbolizing the countries of the British Empire, like Canada, India, and Australia, come to the call of the old lion, Great Britain. Duty, not just to the country, but to the family, was another common theme. Men, if you care for your women and your children, you should join the armed forces to protect them. In these propaganda posters, soldiers stood strong and tall. The possibility of death was only suggested in silhouette. Some propaganda posters, in their efforts to encourage enlistment, were even playful. But it was no game. The machine gun meant that attacking soldiers suffered huge losses. Hundreds of thousands would die before generals would admit the futility of a direct attack. Artillery fire created a no-man's land, blasted with shells and strewn with barbed wire, wreckage, and corpses that separated two trench systems. The soldiers crouched in the trenches as hidden snipers waited to kill the unwary. Night was turned into day as soldiers worked feverishly after dark to rebuild trenches, collect food and ammunition, or scout enemy lines. At dawn and dusk, every soldier stood on guard, since those were the best times for an attack. Then in daylight, the exhausted men might be allowed a few hours' sleep. Rain and cold left soldiers soaked and shivering, ready for a ration of rum. Apart from their diluted rum, food was a major topic of interest. The coarse, monotonous army diet of corned beef, bread, and tea made anything else seem a luxury. At the start of the war, the Germans seized the high ground, while the Allies had to build their trenches in the low-lying wet areas. As soon as the soldiers began to dig down, they would invariably find water below the surface. Along the whole of the Western Front, trench life involved a never-ending struggle against water and mud. Many soldiers fighting in these conditions suffered from trench foot. Without being able to remove wet socks or boots, feet would gradually go numb and the skin would turn red or blue. In a time before antibiotics, both trench foot and injuries could turn to gangrene and result in amputation.
Our guns will begin at dawn.
My dear wife, this may be my last letter to you. We go into action in 20 minutes. It's the biggest thing I've ever been in.